Oh, I got it.
I've got some battery life. Do you want me to do it?
No, I'll do it. And then if I run out, we'll get it back.
Okay.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the October 26th regular session of the Joplin Schools Board of Education. I have a roll call, Pat.
Yes. Derek Dander.
Present.
John Hurt.
Present.
Wiley Hartzell.
Here.
Brent Gordon.
Present.
Dr. Michael Joseph.
Here.
And Sheriff Dermont.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Board members, if you've had an opportunity to review your agenda, I'd accept a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Derek. It's been moved. Thank you, Brent. It's moved and seconded that we approve the agenda as presented. There being no discussion, please vote.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Mike?
Yes.
Yes. Brings us to outstanding students throughout the school year. Also, Roxy McCauley at Soaring Heights Elementary. She received a $100 Visa gift card for use for classroom materials, a coffee mug, and McDonald's coupons and certificates to acknowledge outstanding students throughout the school year. Congratulations to those teachers, and we certainly thank McDonald's for their support of our outstanding educators. Our homecoming parade, excitement, Eagle pride, and community spirit were on full display at this year's homecoming parade. The grand marshal of the parade was Betty Smith, a 1947 graduate and valedictorian of Lincoln High School. Congratulations to her, and congratulations to everyone. Another great parade. Fun stuff. We thank Dr. Gilbert for getting us back into that fun thing. 30 entries representing the ROTC, marching band, fall sports, student organizations, and extracurricular groups paraded from 3rd to 7th Street on Main, delighting and entertaining the enthusiastic crowd. We're continuing our parade here, folks. I apologize for that. Little Women, Joplin High School audiences were theatrically transported back to the 1860s, where the 4 young March sisters and their beloved mother struggled to keep their family going while their father served in the Civil War. In this beautiful adaptation of the classic novel, through hardship, illness, and sibling rivalry, each girl strives to find her true self. The production was especially handpicked by director Ashley Trotnick to showcase a strong cast of female leads. Great stuff. The Lost Minor. The North Middle School Student Council recently presented 2 fun Joplin history walkthrough experiences for students, staff, and families. The event also served as a fundraiser. Attendees could choose either a history walk or a spooky Joplin North ghost story walk. The students did a great job. Sets, costumes, and historical facts were amazing. Special thanks to North Middle School business partner Modine Manufacturing for their help in building the set. Joplin High School volleyball. Congratulations to the JHS volleyball team for winning their first district championship since 1996. Great job, girls. Learning Services Classroom, Dr. Sarah Mwangi and Libby Bird, coordinator of elementary curriculum and instruction, sat down with school literacy and SPED staff regarding 95% group implementation. During the beneficial visits, the first 2 months of instruction were reviewed, questions were answered, problems were solved, and availability of resources confirmed. Together, the team dug into some tricky teaching situations and made decisions about next steps. Great stuff going on in our district, worthy of our celebrations. Yeah, it has been a while. Had lots of good teams. I'm glad to see we were able to pull one out. So good stuff there. That brings us to our BOE Data Analysis Committee meeting report. Jeff Koch is not here obviously tonight. I don't know if John was able to attend that. John, do you have a report for us?
I certainly do, and I'll just cover off on the highlights. And if I miss anything, Sarah, please feel free.
You're good.
Okay, a couple of things. So our district, we educate over 300 e-learners across 14 different languages. That was something I didn't know. And we also have approximately 400 students that are still doing virtual learning. So that's that number has been declining, but we're still right at 400. One thing that was interesting as you get at younger kids as they're coming into the school district, we've got about 50% of our current kindergartners do not attend daycare and or preschool, and that we're finding that there's some larger gaps in the phonetic awareness was a critical foundational literary skill as of course, because it applies to all the other parts of the educational process. And if you're behind on the literary side of it, you tend to fall behind on the other things. Now, on the positive side, I think we're doing a good job of closing that deficit as they go through kindergarten, first and second grade. So that's a real plus to the Joplin school districts and the efforts that our teachers put forth there. That's not an easy thing to do. I certainly appreciate that from our teachers. The other thing is, consistent curriculum alongside the intentional interventions is a thing that we're doing to help close gaps. So understand where the issues are and work with the kids to bring them up to par excel. The other thing is on the high school side, we've implemented the USA test prep benchmark assessment this school year. So that's a real positive. And on the ACT side of it, we don't have the current state data yet, but we do understand with our students and where we sit. And so I'll give a couple of facts on our 2021 graduates on the ACT. We had 193 students that took the test with an average score of 19.92. A real positive that I do see in this is that the 110 of that 193 were in the top 50 percentile. 24 were in the top 50. We had 26 in the top 25. 30 in the top 10 and 30 in the top 5, which you think about that, you have 60 students in the top. I think that's a great number.
And those are the average score, those breakdowns. So it's easy in a large system to look at the overall average score, but when you break those down, the top 5% of our kids, their average ACT is a 30. So those are impressive numbers. So we tend to dig deeper and not just give overall averages, but really look at the breakdown of that data as well.
Yeah, and then just one other final thing I'd call out is that the state data test results is still in an embargo status, so we don't have that yet from the state. Hopefully that'll be released soon and we can see the comparison from there, but we don't have that available to us just yet.
State data has been released. District data is still embargoed until December.
Thank you, John. That was a terrific report. Did you say 14 languages?
Yes.
Holy moly. I struggle with one. Does anybody have any questions of John concerning the Board of Education's Data Analysis Committee? Thank you. That moves us to the Policy Committee meeting. Myself, Brent, and Riley are on that committee. Gentlemen, would one of you?
So we have 4 policies for first review, first read tonight. The first one is from House Bill 2021, but that's from the year 2020, so it gets a little confusing sometimes. But It has to do with the potable water and the ability to test your water if there's concerns in the district. The other two policies, there was one policy regarding virtual instruction, and then with the onset or the influx of all the students learning virtual, MSBA wanted to split that policy in half and just deal with MOCAPs as one of those, and then the other virtual types of instruction as the other policy. So that's split into half. That's the IGCD, two policies. And then there's the criminal background check, just some changes to that as far as your contract services, someone outside the district coming in and working with kids. So those are the four that are on first read tonight. We also discussed some curriculum policies that we already have in place that we kind of tweaked a little bit, changed some wording so it really matches more of how our district is structured since it's changed curriculum-wise the last couple of years. So I have a feeling those are probably sent to MSBA to check for wording, and they'll be on in November's meeting. So
Thank you, Brent. Also a terrific report. You'll notice that we let people who give good reports give the reports. Does anybody have any questions of Brent concerning the Board of Education's Policy Committee meeting? There being none, we'll move on to the superintendent's data report.
All right, the first item in the superintendent's data report is a bond refinancing proposal from Stiefel, and we have Joe Kinder with us. So Mr. Kinder, if you'll come forward, and this is just information for the board at this point to find out kind of where we're setting with our bonds and some opportunities that may be available to us in the future, and just to educate us on that.
That's right. That's right. Well, thanks for having me. It's good to see you all. I know it's not been that long since you did the issuance for your successful bond issue, and congratulations again on that. But wanted to take a minute to give you a little bit of background on a refinancing opportunity you have that would result in some interest cost savings. Talk about a little bit about the why and where we're coming from. So I know you're saying interest rates are low, and we're looking at only about $20 million of the $120 million of debt you have outstanding. And the reason that is because we actually, when we sell this debt into the marketplace, we want to make sure that we're finding the people willing to pay the highest price for your bonds and the lowest possible interest rate for you all is what that means. And one of the things we want to do is provide them the flexibility to structure that deal, how they can get sold the best, and those they being banks to bid on these bonds. So look to provide those opportunities for them as well. But one of the things we want to know about and research on are the investors on the backside of that, people who are actually buying those bonds from the bank. They're buying those in $5,000 increments, and the banks that are bidding on these are actually selling them off on the backside at $5,000 increments to whoever's willing to pay the highest price there. One of the things that means is what we want to attract in terms of investors, are what we call end users, people who are buying your bonds to hold your bonds. That way we know that once they've bought them, they're going to keep them. There's no arbitrage. They can't buy low and sell high, right? You're not leaving a yield on the table. We want to make sure that you're getting the lowest possible yield you can. And one of the things that we do is we want to provide liquidity, believe it or not, even though that we want to find buyers that are buying your bonds and holding them. One of the things that's important to them, and one of the things that will allow them to, or will incent them to pay a higher price, is by guaranteeing their return on their investment over a period of time. And that's pretty standard in the industry. We want to make sure we're hitting those standards. And so each one of your bond issues has a particular, what we call call provision. In other words, you're going to pay, you covenanted to pay principal and interest over a period of time without refinancing it. So even if you were to refinance a bond today on the 2020 bond we just did, you still would have to pay the interest on that until March 1st of 2028. Prior to 2017, as long as it was efficient, you could go in and do a tax-exempt refunding before that date. Now you would have two bond issues outstanding, and you would have some money that have to be invested and do some other things. And we've done some of those for you all in the past. They're what's called advanced refundings, and you're able to do that on a tax-exempt basis. Now, when you go out and issue new money bonds like you did in 2020, what tax-exempt means is the holders of those bonds, the investors, do not pay individual income tax, federal income tax or state income tax on the interest that they earn from those bonds. And if you think about that, if you've got some bonds where you are paying tax on that and some bonds where you aren't, that tax exempt status allows you to borrow at a lower interest rate, right? Because the investors aren't paying interest on that. Prior to 2017, we could do that. With the tax law change in 2017 there, we're no longer able to utilize your tax exempt status to issue bonds, with the exception of within a 90-day window of that call date on each one of these bonds. So we are in a position where really only when the time comes for that 90-day window for each of your 5 different series, you've got a 2012 series bonds, 2013 series bonds, 2016, 2017, 2020. Each one of those has a separate 90-day window where that window opens up where you can utilize that tax exempt status or borrow at that lower rate that's essentially federally and state subsidized, because then they don't collect income tax on those bonds that you issue. So borrow at that lowest rate possible. So what we're talking about here is just your series 2012. That 90-day window starts till December 1st. You have until December 1st to March 1st really to get it done. You could do a refinancing at any point after March 1st, but then you're paying on higher rates than you would otherwise have to. So you would need rates to go down, if that makes sense, from where they are now to save the same amount of money. But the soonest that we could do these using that tax exempt ability that you have to issue debt is as of December 1st. So Dr. Moss, we're just here to make sure we're educating, informing, giving you some options there and letting you know what your options are with the 2012 bonds. The handout that you have, hopefully all of you in front of you, is a lot of pages. It's 8 or 9 pages, but the one we want to focus on is that first page, the top page. There's 3 columns in there on the top of that chart, 3 columns on the right, are the most important ones. So the middle column of those 3, it's entitled Old Net D/S. Admittedly, our numbers running program doesn't kick out the best stuff. That's what you're currently paying and what you would pay if you did nothing with the 2012 bonds. The column just to the left of that, the net new D/S, that's what you would pay if you were out in the market today. So, just understanding that rates can move around. So this isn't a final set of numbers or something that we can lock in today without future board action. But that would be how the deal would sit as the market sits today. And then the column on the right nets that out. You can see that you have an opportunity to save over $2.8 million. So this is something that is certainly something that we would recommend that you do. Certainly something that we think is prudent and good stewards of taxpayer dollars to go out and do this. Now, the considerations that we want to continue to make, the things that we want to look at through a lens to make sure we're making those decisions, because even those done as taxable bonds are going to save money. Your 2013 or 2016 issue, that window opens up for those next December 1st, so they're a year later. But even if you said, hey, we want to do a taxable refunding now, that does save money. But we don't always go out and save money just for the sake of saving money, especially if we're eschewing your ability to utilize tax exempt debt to do that, and then having 2 bond issues outstanding over that time. So we always want to make sure we're focusing on what the other key factors are and what your goal and objectives are. And from a board perspective in the past, that's always been to make sure that you can address your next set of capital needs on a no tax increase basis. So in other words, that you can go out and have the ability with your current cash flows in that debt service fund. And just as a reminder, that debt service fund, the bond money we're talking about here, that money can only be used to pay off bricks and mortar debt. You cannot allocate that to anything else than paying off general obligation debt that you have. But we want to make sure that we're looking at long-range planning. And we know you just wrapped up a round of long-range planning. We think this looks really good, helps you out for your future planning to do a refunding like this. Refinancing like this, and open up some nice windows for you. And more importantly, as you move further along and get a better idea of what your capital planning is, you'll have the opportunity next year to look at the 2013 and the 2016 and see if you want to how you want to take those savings. Again, this here, it would be a maturity match. So it'd be like when you do your mortgage, if you had 15 years that's 15 years in that example. If you had 8 years and 2 months left to pay, it would be as though the bank would allow you to refinance and just go right back out to 8 years, 2 months. That's what we're trying to do here. We are exactly lining up your debt to the way it was and simply lowering the interest rates. And again, that is something that we recommend here. Again, as you look at your 5 series of bonds, and I think I talked about this when I was here with the 2020 issue, we look at that as what we call one common plan of finance. So you are amortizing principal and interest every single year on some of your general obligation debt. Now, which one that is depends on some of the planning that we've done in the past. But again, this one's eligible to use that tax exempt status. It's a good time to do it. And in that savings column on the far right, the very top number is a negative number. That's $600,000. The reason there's a negative number this year is because we feel like you're running a nice surplus in your debt service fund this year. And rather than pay guys like me more money and issue more debt to do a refinancing, that's an actual cash infusion from your debt service reserves, which will make your debt service fund about a break even. It'll be a little bit positive. I think we looked at $100,000, $150,000 for positive. So you'll still build reserves. You have a nice reserve in place, but that makes the issue smaller, which makes your issuance smaller because almost everyone, including us, charge you based on the size of the issue. The other thing it does is obviously you're borrowing less money as you refinance this debt. So you have less interest costs that you pay. So it has a double benefit of saving you some additional dollars.
So how did we land on the 600,000? That number didn't just come out of the air. You got that for a reason. Can you walk through why?
That is my recommendation based on the fact that it brings you to about a balanced budget in this year's cash flows. You know, the taxing entities are interesting, right? Because we want to have a savings account. We want to have that reserve fund, but we also want to make sure that we are taking advantage of the cash flows you have on an annual basis because each year that resets itself. So you had a good year of assessed value growth. And because of that, you have a nice surplus this year. And in order to maximize the savings, but not draw down your reserves, that was the idea behind that. Now, of course, we'll take other suggestions, but we like adding additional savings, but not spending down the reserves you have. We feel that reserve number is a good number. You don't have to raise taxes. We want to continue to be able to execute your capital plan moving forward. We want to provide that flexibility for it, so we want to hold those reserves where you're at. But this is a nice deal. This is something that we would recommend you doing. And, you know, $2.8 million for your taxpayers is a wonderful, wonderful positive thing. And this is a great opportunity where interest rates have stayed low. I think if you'd have told me when you issued these bonds in 2012 that you'd be saving $2.8 million. Well, and I should mention, actually, speaking of those advanced refundings, you did refinance a portion of the 2012 bonds in 2017, the ones that were efficiently able to be refunded. And the reason why is they were at a higher interest rate than these bonds, where you had some sitting at, I think it was closer to 5%. These sit at an average of 3.5%. So in 2017, these would have been longer bonds because, of course, it was 4 years ago. So longer bonds, interest rates are higher. And then these came at a lower rate. So we only refinanced a portion of it that made sense. So you're even saving more than the 2.8. The rates have stayed incredibly low. It's a good time to access capital. You all have done a great job. We expect you to keep your high credit rating with Standard & Poor's again. And we would go through that process and get your credit rating just same as for if you go out and borrow money for a mortgage or something. You have high credit rating, top 10, well, probably top 5% of districts in the state of Missouri, honestly. And
What's the coupon rate on this one?
the coupon rate for this, I think if you scroll down one page, if you don't mind, I believe that our guys, of course, we're guessing on what the market will be on the day and who will bid it, but I believe they put in 4% rates. And so this is an interesting deal, but the bond yield or the true interest cost, we have at 1.62%. So something interesting that happens in our market, speaking of liquidity, and this is a guess on what banks would do, because of course you all historically have done what we call a public sale, where we set a sale date and we allow banks to bid on these bonds. So we're trying to recreate what we think the banks will do. And what happens here is we're creating premium bonds. So you can see we're only borrowing $16.5 million to refund $20 million. So most of the savings that's wrapped up in here is issuing less debt through what's called premium bonds. So yields are what yields are. We cannot impact the market. That fourth column in from the left, where you're borrowing money at 1.04%, 1.23%, and 1.51%. What we can do, what the district can do, is agree to pay any coupon rate they want, up to 9.99%, I think is the limit in Missouri. So you can pay 0 to 9.99, and there's a mathematical computation that goes into that. And when you agree to pay a higher coupon rate than what the par value is relative to the yield, investors pay more upfront for that. Okay, so we can see that on the dollar price. Let's just look at the top one, the 2028. 4% coupon yielding a 104 with 4.97 million of par, so that's the amount of money you would borrow is 4.97 million. Investors would pay 117% of the par value of that. And you can see the value then out there is, my eyes are getting bad, but I think it's over $5.8 million. So they're paying over $1 million up front, and you're able to pay off $1 million of debt basically with that premium up front. The other thing that the premium, well, so let me go back. The premium bonds, the reason why our guys, our folks, as the syndicate desk is looking at that, and we're going to see 4%, is that, again, that liquidity issue. Investors, right or wrong, this calculation is break even. You're getting the 1.04 yield, but investors feel higher coupon bonds are more liquid. Again, we want them to buy and hold, but part of their buy and hold strategy is they want to make sure they have liquid investments if they need to move in and out of them. And they feel like if market rates go up, for whatever reason, bonds with a 4% coupon will be more liquid. Again, the math is what the math is. The sale prices are going to change as rates go up, but that's something that they feel. The other thing that's nice about that is, again, we're charging on the par amount, so you're refunding $20 million of bonds, only issuing 16.5. So there's $3.5 million there that you're not getting charged any fees on, because your two biggest fees are going to be, or the three biggest fees are going to be the bank that buys those, bond counsel, Gilmore & Bell, who drafts all the documents, and then the rating agency will be behind that. So again, that's, this is us trying to project and predict what the market is going to do, but that's the coupon rate is 4%. But the realized yield of the district is, we're guessing, is going to be 1.6, 1.7% if market rates hold. So with that, what I would be asking for is just kind of a thumbs up. There's no formal action tonight, but we wanted to be able to bring this plan to you with the idea that we would come back with a final results, hopefully at this December board meeting. And, again, we've got the 90-day window, but I think right now, our recommendation right now is not around until January, February to do this deal. We have several things pointing to the potential for inflation. Inflation is happening from a price perspective, but in our market, inflation pressure would mean higher interest rates for borrowers. And we see some of that coming. There's a lot of new money that the federal government is printing that's out there that could put pressure on interest rates to go up. We've got the Fed, who controls overnight rates for banks, which, how that's tied to our market is a little bit above my pay grade. But when they start talking about raising that overnight rate, typically what that means is our interest rates in our market for you all as borrowers will go up as well. And then we've got other things, supply chain issues. We've got, workforce issues. We've got other things that could potentially cause rates to go up. So we think that as close to as reasonable to that window opening up, that we should execute a refinancing and try to get that savings in place for you all. But like I said, no formal action item, just kind of a, hey, thumbs up. I wanted to let you know it's coming. If there's any concerns or any sort of structure that you think you might want to change, then we'll readdress that next month, and we can make those adjustments as well. Or if you feel good about that plan, we would move forward. Again, next year, as you get further on down to capital planning, you'll have another opportunity to look at this. You may want to accelerate some debt. You may want to move some things around, but you'll have an opportunity to save money, again, with that target to obviously maximize your tax dollars and make sure you're saving as much money as you can, but make sure you can go to your voters and ask for no tax increase bond issues if and when you have to do capital projects in the future.
Joe, that was a terrific presentation from my perspective. I would certainly, can I give them a consensus thumbs up, folks? Can't imagine anybody that don't want to save a couple $1 million. Just as somebody who's not sophisticated in these matters like you are, when you talk to us about the likelihood of inflation and the impact that may have on interest rates, it's hard for somebody like me to sit here and listen to that fantastic presentation and wonder if you shouldn't be recommending that we incur some taxable increase bond investments as well on some of that other debt if we see a likelihood of interest rate increases. I mean, it sounds like we may not have this same opportunity a year from today on debts on that tax-free bond issuance. Is that something that you guys can present as an either or to the board, or is that, we might want to just see how that looks? I mean, I don't know.
No, your thinking is correct. And again, actually not again, but we actually have run those numbers. I'll provide that to you, Shelley, so you can provide it to the board so you can see what those look like. And we can actually, we go in by maturity and show you an analysis of what that's worth. I think that the one thing we want to talk to our clients about is just because, and I don't know if I said this or not, but just because a deal is saving money doesn't mean it's a deal that we absolutely have to do. And the reason why is because of that no tax increase bond issue idea. Missouri is unique in that a little bit. If we look to our neighbors just to the west, their debt service fund looks a lot like their special revenue fund, or for you, your fund two, which has to be at zero at the end of every year. So their debt service fund ends at zero every year. So the interest, or the tax rate on a bond fund in Kansas can move around depending on what assessed value is on any given year. So almost every single bond issue that you vote, absent having an issue pay off in Kansas, is a tax increase. Something that people are used to. They see their tax rate go down, and then you vote to raise your tax levy back up to whatever to get a project done. Missouri's a little bit different. We hold a reserve. We run a levy that's steady. We ask our patrons what our levy is going to be, and then we set our levy right there, right? Your patrons, approve that levy at 91 cents moving forward for the next 20 years. So that's part of the consideration, is that we want to make sure we're wrapping it around your broader goals and objectives for your capital plan. So we don't want to, absent a really compelling amount of savings that really drastically changes your ability to borrow in the future, or some sort of imminent need that you have that we need to move that around. We don't necessarily, I won't be here recommending that you do a taxable refunding. That doesn't mean that that's not something you want to do, and I certainly will provide that to you. But our recommendation would be to take this on a year-by-year basis. You've got bonds callable in 23, bonds callable 27, bonds callable 28. So you'll have some opportunities to do that. The upside of the inflationary coin is that, in talking with our syndication, they think this inflation will be relatively short-lived. And the reason why that is, just as a little bit of background, is we have in this country gotten used to, buying a car at 0.9% APR, to buying a house at under 5%. And it wasn't too long ago where you're feeling like you got to steal if you're borrowing money for your mortgage at 8.5%, and you're borrowing your car at 12 or 13%. So to a certain extent, there are a lot of economic drivers there that would incent the federal government to try to keep interest rates low, which typically means your interest rates are low. And then the other side of that is they think that the availability of once the supply chain issues free up, the availability of inexpensive goods from foreign labor, right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm just relaying you what my syndicate said, is going to keep generally prices low and then interest rates low behind it, unless and until something like that changes. What they call emerging markets, as long as we can access goods and services at a low, well, not services, but goods at a low price for emerging markets, they think that'll hold rates low. So to the extent we see inflation, they're saying that it might be a bubble. Now, you're right, we may give up some savings in 2013 and 2016, but I also, on your bonds there, but I also foresee that you're going to have some ability to shorten those up from a term perspective, depending on what your assessed value does next year. So those won't be as interest rate sensitive as some of your other debt. And some of your other debt, when we talk about a bond that's not eligible to be refinanced until March 1st of 2027, that's really hard going out 5 years. It's hard to make that efficient when we've got to invest at 5-year rates and borrow at longer rates. But I will show you for certain, we've got those numbers run, the 2013 and 2016 as taxable refundings. And was actually just in Camden this morning talking to their board, and it was about a 0.5% difference. And you're right. I mean, we saw in April of 14, we saw the market move 0.8% in a day. So if there is some sort of market disruption, there is certainly the potential that you could be borrowing next year tax exempt at a higher rate than this year taxable. But we will have a clearer picture of your future in terms of your needs, your abilities next year as well. So we try to balance those two things and not bring you, a deal that we don't feel totally comfortable meets your plan. But that may not be, your board is going to continue to evolve and move on with those plans. So we want to make sure we're adapting to your goals and objectives and meeting those as well.
Well, I appreciate you coming this evening, Joe. And does anybody have any questions? Thank you for being here this evening. I think that you got a thumbs up.
Yeah, well, and I'll provide those to Shelley, and then if you want me back down at your November meeting to discuss those options as well, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
And in November, would there be action to take on that so that you're positioned to do this in December? Or does that need to take place also after December 1st?
You know, the go-to-market resolution, which we've done in the past, is something that is helpful in terms of accessing information from the county and other people that we have to go out and draw information from. So we might do that as something that's just a consent agenda item that now that you've had a chance to review it, mull it over. And that does not obligate you to approve the sale in December. All that does is say, hey, we're going to allow Gilmore and Bell and Stiefel as our underwriters counsel and financial advisor to move forward with the drafting and preparation of documents, obtaining a credit rating, all that good stuff. So we may do that if that, that would probably help us do some of those things. That would be good.
I mean, the only thing I would ask is, I mean, you just put some numbers on here, which it is for today, but you got to get those numbers firmed up on both the coupon rate and then the price premium on that to come to us and say, look, this is something that's actionable. And also, I think it'd be appropriate to share how does that compare with the broader market or other school districts and like things. We can say we're going to place this timing and as it compares to make sure we're getting the right value out of this. I think would be very appropriate for us as a board to understand that part of it.
I will, unfortunately, because of the nature of the public sale, I will bring a couple different places and they're all shows each other on how that end up. But again, we don't want to make a really narrow lane or path for these banks to bid on your bonds because while they're all accessing the same investors, different syndicate desks think about things differently. But, it's interesting that 4% coupons are up there because we're still using that as kind of our benchmark. But 2 weeks ago on our market update call with all of our syndicators, we were hearing that we can't sell anything. Investors only want 4% coupons. And they went through this whole big deal about, hey, you need to start preparing your issuer clients, all this. And then we were actually in the market for a negotiated sale, which is a different method, for a school district on Monday. And we had no feedback from anybody. And then everybody changed around and they wanted either 5% coupons or 2% coupons. So it will be whoever wins what we call the true interest cost on the day of the borrowings, whoever can provide us the lowest yield. And that will mean the most amount of savings. From a structure perspective, that could be anywhere. Again, all we're going to ask is that they abide by state law in Missouri, which means they can't go, well, we will actually create a narrower lane than that because we are what's called par limited in Missouri. So we cannot issue any more debt than the debt we are refinancing in order to do a refinancing, even no matter how much savings there is. So we will cap the minimum coupon at a rate that will keep you from violating that Missouri statute, but then we won't cap the top end of that. We'll allow them to generate whatever premium they want because the math again will be the same. The savings will be there, but we want to make sure that our goal and our objective for you on the day of sale, on the execution date, is to make sure that we have as many eyes and as many bidders putting in bids as is possible in our market so that we know we're getting the most efficient, best price for the district. And so we can provide you a couple ways we think that outcome might go, but we want to make sure that you understand that it could be any of that or a million other different options. But what we will do is make sure that your payments show savings every single year and go from there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Good to see you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Okay, our next item on the superintendent's data report is proposition action. And I see that we have Nick Edwards and Rob O'Brien here, and they're going to tell us about proposition action.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing Rob and I some time on your agenda to talk about an important upcoming election. My name is Nick Edwards. I'm the city manager. I'm joined by Rob O'Brien. He's the chair of our citizens committee. So I'll try to be brief so I can respect your time. We've got a few slides, but proposition action is an election that's coming on November 2nd. How we got to this election, one of the first things I did as city manager was to embark upon a listening tour. That's a fancy name for a survey. Did a survey of the community about what they see as strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, some of that strategic planning stuff. And I was blown away by the amount of responses. I got over 1,400 people that responded. Across those 5 questions, that's 7,000 responses. Sometimes they had multiple responses per question. So I feel like I've got about 20,000 data points about what the the community wants the city to do. So it's an overwhelming amount of information, but glad to have it because there's a lot of energy behind it. So on our next slide, I give you a little sampling of some of the comments, and you might have shared these comments yourself, so bonus points if you've done that. They kind of start off small, but get a little bit more direct as we go. It's kind of summarized at a high level. There's a desire from our community to see some revitalization in the city and to see the city put a better foot forward. So on the next slide, you can see more of the same. There were a lot of comments about kind of the state of our housing stock. Some folks are frustrated about some of the standards that the city has or doesn't have. On the next slide, you're going to see some comments about safety. There's a portion of our community that doesn't feel safe, which is kind of a tragic thing. I think on the next slide, again, you're seeing more comments about safety. The homeless issue was a big topic that came up. Certainly a challenging issue, but something that the citizens wanted to see the city get its arms around. So on the next slide, after I got the information compiled, I presented the information to our mayor and council, and they came up with 6 goals. I'm really thankful for them. They're a goal-oriented group. They're intentional about the things they want to accomplish. It gives me hope that we'll be able to make some significant headway in these areas. But their goals are to improve community appearance. That's an important thing for us to do if we're going to attract new investment. Address declining neighborhoods. Joplin's nearing its 150th birthday, and so some of our neighborhoods are starting to show some age, and so we need to take on some activities in there. Economic development is always a thing cities do, trying to create opportunities for people to have business and prosperity here. As I mentioned, the homelessness goal, homeless goal is one that's out there. Crime and safety is a critical service that reducing crime, increasing our safety is always a critical thing that the city does, and so that's a important goal area. The last goal is kind of a bigger picture goal of being more resilient. The city is predominantly funded through sales tax. We have all of our eggs in the sales tax basket. So if there's a recession, the city's in a difficult spot and would be challenged to provide services throughout the community. So on the next slide, after getting the goals from our mayor and council, internally as staff, we worked on what we call action plans. Those are the things that we would embark upon if we had the resources to make some headway on the goals. Some of them are small and some of them are grandiose. So for an example of an action plan to improve community appearance, one of the smaller ones would be to bring back our Adopt a Street or Adopt a Park programs. That certainly helps kind of improve an appearance. Some of the bigger plans in this area would be to dedicate some funding for beautification. There's a lot of communities that are doing great work in beautifying their community, making it more attractive for people to invest in. On the next slide, the address neighborhood blight is probably one of the bigger categories. Some of the examples of action plans that we would propose to undertake. We would bring back the JHAP program. You might be familiar with that program. That was the program that helped kind of rebuild in the tornado zone. We would bring it back citywide so that maybe we can encourage some reinvestment in some vacant properties. Another action plan would be to incentivize some tear downs of those homes that have lost all their value or at the end of their life. Instead of letting those hang around in depressed neighborhoods, we can get on the front side of that and incentivize rebuilding there. Some other action plans would be to bolster our code enforcement group and do some rental inspection efforts. And so those are just some action plans in that area. So on the next slide, you'll see reduce crime and increase safety. This is a critical service for us. I don't have to explain that to you all, but 2 of the biggest probably action plans of the whole set, which I think we have about 47, would dedicate funding for the hiring of additional police officers and firefighters, and also to maybe help with some pay issues. So that's going to give us, the enhanced service, enhanced public safety service. We'd be excited about that. Another smaller action plan would be to hire some park rangers. There's folks that don't feel safe in our parks. And so having some park rangers kind of rotating through our parks on a periodic basis would help deter some criminal activity. On the next slide, some homelessness issues. We really want to strengthen our partnership with Homeless Coalition. They're a great group of nonprofits that really know how to address this issue. So we're proposing to surround them with some more support. There's also probably a need for us to do some better communication to the public about the effects of panhandling and the maybe better ways to give and address, help those in need. Some other action plans in this group would be to better maintain property so that it's, our spaces, both public and private, aren't attracting the homeless crowd, but instead maybe deterring the homeless crowd. And so there's a variety of action plans that we want to take on in this area. Our next slide, increase economic opportunities. One of the, I think the saddest thing I heard and listening to is there's this perception that maybe kids or students or young adults don't feel like there's opportunity here for them. And so we need to invest more into our economic development activities. Some of the things we would do is maybe look at broadband, definitely look at smart city technology, which is using technology in our infrastructure. All those are things that can help us attract more investment, attract more opportunities for people that need them. So in the next goal area, the resilient revenue, I've kind of talked about that. This is a more bigger picture goal, but through proposition action, we'd be bolstering our revenues, adding a new revenue stream that would make us more resilient. On the next slide, there's this is the slide that kind of a summary. There's over 45 action plans that the city's developed. We've put those online. We want to be accountable for these plans, communicate these plans. So I've given you probably a 5-minute overview of about a year's worth of work to develop these. So I'd really encourage everybody to visit the city's website. They're listed for background on the action plans. I think the next slide is a table. Again, this is summarizing some of the action plans I've mentioned. Really, we're trying to tackle the different problems or the issues from a lot of different directions. If we're improving our public safety, we're probably also strengthening our neighborhoods. If we're strengthening our neighborhoods, we're probably also having a better community appearance. So we're really trying to have a holistic approach on how we address these community issues. So on slide 16, this is where I usually hand off to Mr. O'Brien to talk about the rest of proposition action.
Thanks, Nick. And thank you all again for your time this evening. Nick always gets to talk about all this glowing part and then hands the tax part to me in this. So we have a large volunteer committee that spent time going over all of these action points that the city has. We've had some input on some things for the city to think about should this pass on November 2nd. And so if we could go to the next slide. One of the things I would point out is that these are great plans, and they will do a lot for our community in a variety of areas that people have said, us, the citizens have said, we want to see this happen for our community. But you can't get there without resources. This body knows that better than anyone because you've just had a discussion about some of your bond issues and way to improve cash flow. And so you know that you can't get there on things you want to do unless you have the revenue to support it. So what proposition action proposes is implementation of the use tax. And what I would point out is A use tax is not a new tax. Every place in the state at one point in time, a number of years ago, had the use tax, and there was a court case that said communities and counties had to approve it individually. And so our neighbors in Webb City have approved it. Carthage just approved it in August. Springfield, who we do compete with on some economic development projects, has approved it. And the state of Missouri has now taken their steps in the last legislative session to put their use tax on every internet purchase. Before that, it was only if you had a brick and mortar location. So if it was Walmart and you ordered, well, there's Walmarts in Missouri. And so the state could collect state sales tax revenue. But if it was something, for example, on Etsy, they couldn't, but now they can collect that on everything. That's good news for us in the context that we get the same application of that. However, Webb City gets theirs, Carthage gets theirs, the state of Missouri gets theirs. We don't get anything unless we approve this on November 2nd. So a use tax basically is a tax that's applied to out-of-state online purchases. It looks exactly the same as the sales tax that we pay in the city of Joplin. It has the same stacking, if you will. So when Nick talks about money for public safety, we have a public safety sales tax at the local level that's reflected on the use tax. So those dollars flow right to public safety. And so we see the benefits of that across every incremental sales tax that we have locally. We get the same thing out of the use tax on that. We can go to the next slide. We should point out that this really is not, this is not an additional tax. It's not a tax increase. You never pay a use tax and a sales tax. If you buy in Joplin, you pay sales tax. If you buy online, you essentially pay a sales tax, although it's called a use tax because it's out of state. But it's exactly the same thing, but you never pay them both. So this is not a tax increase, nor is it really a new tax. Can we go to the next slide? This is what's been happening, and this is why this is important. And I'm just going to ask the question, and you do not need to raise your hand, but I'll raise mine. How many of you shop online? Yeah. We all do. It's a trend, you know. This isn't necessarily pointing the finger. It isn't. It's not saying, oh no, don't do that. We think it's important to pay taxes on online purchases because that helps level the playing field with our local folks. But by and large, it's a trend. The pandemic accelerated that. We see that going on all of the time now. And this is just a chart of what we've seen in terms of department store sales have been going down. Internet sales have been going up for the city of Joplin. As Nick said, predominantly sales tax driven. There's a flattening effect that's going on right now. We haven't gone backwards, but we're starting to flatten out. So if the city can do all of the things that have been presented by Nick on that, the revenue has to increase, and this is the way to do it. If we can move on. This is a little, you probably can see this a little better on your individual screens, but basically this is a little analysis of some communities that have implemented that, like Webb City. And the cities that have implemented this in the state of Missouri in general run between 8% and 15% in terms of revenue gain. In other words, on the other side of that, because of internet sales, they've been losing that same amount of revenue, and now they're gaining it back. So if the city of Joplin were to only get, and we don't know until this passes, and you start seeing how that starts flowing, but if Joplin were to only get 8%, just like Webb City does, new revenue, that's $3.7 million more a year and growing for the city budget. That's just 8%. And so you can see it has a significant impact on the ability of the city to do the things that were mentioned in the proposition action points. If we could take another step. We're not picking on JCPenney, but we know JCPenney is kind of the last big box standing out at the mall. And how much longer is that going to be? You can buy Penny online, you can buy Macy's online, et cetera. So, it's very important to do this, to make sure that whether you buy it here locally or whether you buy online, those dollars from your shopping come and help support the city. If we go on, just skip that one. We've kind of talked about that. So this is a little bit about proposition action. This is what you actually see on the ballot, and it is a cumbersome state legislated wording on this, but I think the one thing that I would refer you to is that talk at the bottom about remitting to the state. And if you ever really look closely, when you're doing your state income taxes, there actually is a phrase on there that says if you have made purchases over $2,000, you have to remit sales taxes out of state, $2,000 out of state. You have to remit the sales tax to the state. Nobody ever sees it, nobody ever really notices it. But in point of fact, if you think about buying online, and if you're buying electronics, you're buying a computer, it doesn't take long to do that. So really, what the use tax does is take that burden off of you. And again, the state now has their side of it, so they're going to capture all of this. And they'll see the reports from all of these companies, even ones that didn't used to submit because they had no brick and mortar presence here. So it takes the burden off us individually to do that and puts it on the seller. And they handle it all. All you have to do is just make your online purchase just like you always do. So, next slide. Nick mentioned there's a website if you want to know more. It's a great opportunity for the community. Now, let's face it, nobody ever thinks they want to pay more. We don't want to pay more. You've had a great discussion about actually saving some money tonight on that. But in point of fact, you do have to make investments in the community. And let me give you an example, a very personal story. 21 years ago, in 2000, as at the chamber, we had an economic development prospect that was an office prospect, nice prospect, good jobs. We have the people here who can do those jobs. We have the building. We had everything we needed. We got down to the final two, and we didn't win that project. We went to the other community. So in debriefing with the company, the people we had worked with at the company, we said, give us some feedback. Why didn't we win out on this? And their feedback was basically that they were going to send 3 people in to stand the new operation, help hire everyone, and then run the thing. And all 3 of them had young families, and all 3 of them came into Joplin under cover of darkness on the weekend, and that does happen with prospects, so they could look at the city. And what they told their bosses was basically they didn't see any parks in Joplin. This other community had a big central park with lots of stuff and a swimming pool and all this, and they didn't see any parks in Joplin, which was kind of interesting. So the then city manager, next 2 back predecessors, Steve Lewis and I went back around and we looked at our parks, and you know what we saw? We saw parks without signs, kind of old, playground equipment. Well, nothing attractive here. It's a little rough. Pretty easy to overlook if you're just driving around town because it didn't, again, not even any signage. And so Steve said, I'm planning on a stormwater sales tax. We're going to put parks on that. We're going to develop a plan and look at our parks today. We have great parks. They're beautiful. People use our parks. Something that was really done for economic development purposes, if you will, has benefited everyone who lives in this community and people who come to visit. This is the same thing. This is a way to step the game up to say, we want to do all of these things in terms of public safety, improving neighborhoods, increasing the value of housing by a revised JHAP program, addressing homeless issues, all of those things that make the community a better place that help attract new people in. Those people who come in the cover of darkness on behalf of their company to check out the community. So we do it for us, but it will grow our economy. I firmly believe that. Do you have any questions?
I just have one. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that the Joplin sales tax year over year was up quite a bit. Did I misunderstand that?
It's been increasing a little bit. And as our city finance person says, and she's looked at it, she pretty firmly believes this is a blip. Menards will give us another blip when it opens. We've seen that over the years. But the long-term trend has been flattening until we had the blip right now. And that, so she's looking ahead and saying, we're getting flatter as we go.
And I'd like to add, I'm just trying to learn, the kind of past history of our finances, but one of the things that was shown is the graph of our general revenue, and it is mostly flat. So in a period of phenomenal economic growth, the city's sat on the sideline for that. In fact, as prices have increased, for us to stay under that flat revenue line has meant that we've had to cut costs. And so that's a real challenge for us. We're not going to be able to cut our way to solving these issues, and I think that's why proposition action will help.
But when you say cut costs, I mean, I looked at this, the city of Joplin, you guys have increased your spending quite a bit year over year. So to say cut costs, I don't understand that. I mean, it's gone up almost double digits, I think, from 19 to 20. If I recall, that it was 14% increase year over year costs. And I don't mean to quibble with you, but I remember that because I went and talked to the Joplin City Council about that at that time, because I thought that rate of increase was really out of line.
Yeah, recently we've certainly had some financial assistance come from the federal government through COVID stuff. There was also the tax that was passed in 2018 for the public safety group. So we have had some revenue enhancements. There's no doubt about that.
But I was talking about the spending, not the revenue.
So we've had spending increases as well. Part of that was through Prop B. We were able to make some changes on the pension, free up some costs so that we could pay for some other costs.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thanks for being here. I think this is important. You shared a lot of information, both of you, and I think it's important that people know what this really means, because I think my eyes were certainly enlightened tonight, and I would consider myself somebody who's a high information voter, but nevertheless, you still learn the more that we talk through this. So thanks for being here. I just two questions would be, first, when was the last time we did increase funding for the city through a tax? It's probably been some time ago, other than property.
Yeah, other than property, I don't. Rob probably has more history.
I'm trying to remember the last incremental increase, because the rates have been basically the same. The general fund percentage, capital improvement percentage, they've all been the same, even on renewals. But I think the last one that the city voted on was public safety. Setting aside Prop B. Prop B was a realignment essentially to address the pension issues, but that was a decade ago, something like that, dude.
Sounds about right.
So it's been
a long time.
Yeah, it's been quite a while.
And I'd say in my work with the city, I've seen firsthand with my work with the Board of Appeals, where services have been cut and people have been negatively impacted. So I think that this is a great opportunity to relieve some of that and to continue to provide good services to people in Joplin want that. People ultimately, I think, want those things from their schools and their city. So thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Let me add one other point. Nick touched on it, but to be more specific in that, as our committee went out early and began talking with people about this, we did have a lot of feedback about transparency, and And part of that transparency, as mentioned, is this looks exactly like the local sales tax. So that increment flows directly back. It's not just a big puddle of dollars. They look exactly like the current sales tax rate. So much for public safety, so much for stormwater, right on down the line. But we conveyed that to the council, and the council did agree that there will be a citizens oversight committee. There are citizen oversight committees on several of these incremental taxes, capital improvements for one. And so there will be a citizen oversight committee of this, should it pass.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being here this evening. Did you have something else that you want?
No, sir, I just leave these flyers. These are just informational purely, and so I'll share these with the board and whoever else might want them. So I'll leave these here for you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you all
Thanks,
very
sir.
much.
Thank you. The next item is to hear a construction update, and I believe we have Chad and Aaron with us tonight for that.
He never wants a center seat.
Aaron show tonight.
All right, construction update. Start with Kelsey Norman. Kelsey Norman just got our city inspection last week and walked through with Dale Brooks yesterday. Got his blessing, so we are good to go on Kelsey Norman. Ribbon cutting is Friday at 10 a.m. So perfect. On the Dover Hill. So really right now, we're doing a whole lot of stuff that is, for the Joe Blow public, we can't see. Anyone who's driving by, you're not going to be able to tell we're putting yards and yards and yards of concrete in the ground. Right now, for instance, we poured 25% of the FEMA shelter today, which was roughly 80 yards of concrete just today. Area B, which is the eastmost section of the building, we're done with the footings. So we're rolling right along. Our first slab pour is scheduled for November 8th. It's Monday. Obviously, we've got some rain coming in the future, so that may have to adjust a little bit. November 8th is our goal. Structural steel shows up November 12th. Our plan is to start erecting structural steel on the 15th, Monday the 15th. So you'll start seeing structure going up. Our precast shelter arrives the 15th as well. We're going to have two separate crews, one working on the precast, one working on the steel. So you'll see a lot of action this coming month. Other notable dates, metal decking, it arrives the 29th of November. That's important because as soon as we get our structural steel installed, we'll be able to pour the second floor. As we talked about earlier in board meetings, bar joist is the big thing. Bar joist is basically your roof structure. There's a little bit of structural steel around the perimeter, but essentially we won't be able to complete any of the roof structure until those bar joists get here. I'm optimistic that they will arrive sooner. As you know from Kelsey Norman, we were told that they were going to arrive on a certain date. They ended up showing up 6 weeks early. We're hoping that that arrives early on Dover Hill. We're going to work towards that goal like they will arrive. So we will be ready if they even attempt to get here sooner. That being said, bar joists right now are scheduled for March 1st. Right down the road at Cornell Arts, you're going to see a lot of similar construction going on for Dover Hill. You're going to see structural go up, and then you're going to see metal studs going underneath that second floor. You're going to see a lot of interior rough-in with MEP trades, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, fire sprinkler. All those guys are going to be working inside as you can see through the building. That's not typical. Typical, we get our building dried in, we get a roof on, we get the skin on, and then we work inside. We're going to have to switch things up on this project to keep things progressing along. I think we're going to have a lot of similar construction going on for Dover.
The structural and the decking, where's that coming from?
New Millennium. So it's a company that primarily does bar joists and decking. That's all they
Where's it
do.
shipping from?
I'm not sure where the factory itself is. They have two factories, one down in Texas and one up near Nebraska.
Okay, it's local.
Yeah.
It's unit. Okay, very good. Thank you.
I went very long.
It is, as best as we can. One other notable thing for Dover, we're also going to start our site concrete. The plan is to start our curb and gutter because we have 3,000 linear feet of curb and gutter. Started now. Might as well. We've got a base rock lot. If we can get that done before the asphalt plant shut down, our plan is to asphalt the base only before winter. That will give us a huge advantage over the course of the job. And then, of course, at the very end, we'll top coat it, look pretty, and be good to go.
Is the site pretty close ready for all the gutter and?
It's very close. The road on the backside coming up Murphy, it's going to take a little bit more work, but everything else is 2 grade. It's been laser shot in. It's good to go. One other thing to note, as you've driven by, hopefully, MoDOT. So we've started the right turn lane. You see all the flashing lines. You can't turn right on Murphy. We were going to pour that tomorrow. Obviously, we've got about 100% chance of rain. So we've rescheduled that for Wednesday of next week. We need 7 days of cure, and then that should be opened back up. Any other questions for me?
Good progress.
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
That's good news.
Well, so frequently we go out to the site and we create these architect site report. We thought we'd share one of those with you tonight. This one was conducted last week. Estimated percent of completion around 20%. You see the work in progress there. Currently, they were doing the foundations in Area B. They've kind of moved a little past that since then. But the work continues for the underground storm piping. They're about 95% complete with that. The underground MEP rough-ins in Area B, obviously, as Aaron mentioned, the Main Street improvements, and then the site and road grading. So if you wouldn't mind scrolling down, I thought I would just share a few site photos with you so you guys can see kind of what's going on. So this is in the middle, sort of the middle of the building looking towards the east. And you see a lot of the foundations there on the left side of the screen. Next picture, please. They're working on some of the exterior foundations on the south side of the building, and this is the view looking towards the east on the south side of the building. And there you can see a lot of the rebar coming out of the foundation, but that is, again, in Area B at the southeast corner, where I think that's where we have a gas line going up there. You can see Main Street in the background there, but go ahead, continue. That's at the very southeastern corner of the site, looking down towards the new Murphy Street entry. And you can see that there's still a little bit of rock left to remove in that section there, which should be done shortly.
The grade of the hill is roughly where we're going to be when we finish. So if you look at that, you can kind of tell where we're going to be finished grade.
This is the very, go ahead. So
I don't think the pictures do justice on how deep and how wide those footings are.
They're huge.
What's the width and the depth of those?
It all depends.
Like the one picture that we saw, which looks like
A regular grade beam, I believe it's 3.5, 4 foot wide and about 3 foot deep.
some of those bigger ones are about
When you
6,
get
8
into
feet.
the structure, the footings for the FEMA shelter, they're huge. And I took pictures of it tonight, but they're approximately 10 foot wide and roughly 4 foot deep.
pictures don't do it any justice.
They don't. There's a lot of
2 feet
concrete.
wide on residential.
That's right.
This is one of the last pictures here, but this is the very northeastern corner of the building, and it's where some of the main building services enter the building. So we've got our domestic water that you can see sticking out of the foundation on the left, and then on the right, we've got our fire line coming in. And then the last picture from that same northeast corner, kind of looking directly towards, that is looking west, kind of across the building site there. And then the next picture is a view of the same spot looking towards the north, which will be, that is actually the bus drop-off where those two cars are parked right there. So you have your bearing, but looking across the parking lot. Any questions?
So the slab pour on the 8th, it's going to start about 2 a.m. So you're welcome to attend if you want to.
Quick question, Chad, and this is probably something that I missed along the way, but I've had some people ask me, and I'm just curious, the hill portion towards Maine, where it's really high, what's happening with that?
So that will get fine graded out and kind of smoothed out, but the hill as it is today is pretty much how it will be. And the reason for that is early on in the process, we had a conversation with AT&T. There's a huge fiber line that runs through there.
It's called an intercontinental fiber line.
It's a big one.
Connects Arkansas to Kansas City.
And the price tag for relocating that was pretty substantial. And so we looked at that as a challenge, obviously, to overcome and from a financial standpoint, but obviously understanding that berm. The nice thing about it is it's going to help eliminate some of the noise for the students in the classrooms. And it will be an additional shield, if you will, for those younger students and keeping them away from Main Street. So we saw it as an opportunity, but it'll get slightly graded out and smoothed over, but it will remain in height along Main Street.
That's great. I just was curious because
Yeah.
like I said, when someone asked me, I'm like, well, I really don't have a good answer. That's
Yeah.
good to know. Thanks.
There's a big fiber there.
Big.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you all.
We'll see you
Thanks, Sue.
Friday, if not
Absolutely.
before.
Sounds good.
Have
Look
they
forward to it.
reported the footings for the shelter?
Do what?
Have they reported the footings for the shelter?
About 25% of the shelter. Yeah.
I'm sure you got there tomorrow, I'll see those.
Yeah, maybe a little wet.
I've got rubber boots in the truck.
I love it.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the last two items on the superintendent data report are Shelley Toffs. They are the health and dental plan update. And then Shelley, if you just want to roll right into the financial statements.
Okay. On the health and dental, this was the end of the first quarter, and we saw where we'd spent a little over 2.1 million and of our 7.4 budget, which is about 29% of our total budget. Revenues did pick up. If you'll go to, Eric, go to like page 3 there. We started collecting on our 9, 10, and 11-month employees, where we had collected on those back in May, and then they don't pay anything again until starting in September. You will notice that retirees, there was not a collection on retirees this month. The file, HR, the benefits, the file was late getting to the bank, so we'll see 2 months of that next month, or two payments of that will come in next month. And last month I mentioned on the health claims paid that we'd received like 224,000 stop loss payment. So that's why health claims paid appear to be a little bit lower this month, but that is that check coming in on the stop loss that shows that. And if you have any questions on health and dental, otherwise I'll move on to financial. This month, if you'll go to, Eric, go to the condensed financial statement, Dr. Langford's favorite page. On this month, you'll see like the revenues, state and federal, compared to last year. State is up about $1 million, federal is down about $1 million. And that's last year we were seeing the withholds at the state level. But we'd received CARES money last year, so that's kind of flip-flopped back again to the normal rate there. I did include on the prior year showing the bond, sale of the bonds coming in, and I've got those footnoted down below. Incidental fund is up a little bit compared to prior year. Part of that is we have purchased the Eureka math books using our ESSER fund, some ESSER funds of like 245,000. And then also some, just a timing on some payments that maybe got paid a little bit later last year than they got paid a little earlier this year. But otherwise and then of course, the capital projects fund is paying for the Kelsey Norman and Dover Hill projects. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Toft. Does anybody have any questions concerning our health and dental or financial statements? There being none, that brings us to our public comment portion of our meeting. It's my understanding that we have a Mr. Michael Ori joining us this evening. Mr. Ori, I believe that what we offer is 3 minutes for you to speak. Please identify yourself. I believe that you're asked to contain your remarks to the items on our agenda this evening, speak to matters on the agenda. And please give your name and address. Do not identify any district personnel or student by name or by any other identifiable information. So welcome.
Name's Michael Corey, 1408 West Stora, Joplin, Missouri. Can I hand these out?
Sure.
Don't know who all's on board, but I've got plenty.
Would you like me to help you?
Well, you can, sure. I know there's extras. You want to start?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Had some grievances. I came here in June to discuss my child coming home looking like she was beat up. And I thought I'd get some answers, but apparently I didn't. But I did get this nice letter from y'all, thanking me for addressing y'all. No answers? Don't get nothing? Kid comes home looking like she's beat up, I don't get nothing. Yeah, that's great. Moving on. This proposition action, this is a tax, right? A use tax. Why are we discussing that at the Joplin board meeting? I mean, I know I don't get answers today, but will I get an answer? Probably not. Which brings me to the main reason why I'm here. If I were to ask any of you to make your own scary face on the front of your creepy underwear to a 6-year-old, what would you tell me? Because this is what my daughter brought home from school. If anybody here finds this appropriate, I'd like to know how. How does a book make it into a first grade's class to discuss their panties? I'm furious over this. This is unacceptable. Telling these cards that I'll hand out to you, the birthday cards for my daughter's birthday. The school's personnel said they would hand them out in her class. And she got them back. I got them back. Waste of time. If this school board in the school system is not going to do as they say, then you'll need to do something different. Like not be on the school board. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. She comes home with something like this again, and I will see you all in court. This is pedophilic. Bullshit. Thank you for your time. Join
I will ask if the board would like to take a break right now.
Yes.
We'll adjourn until, how about 5 minutes for the restroom break? Let's get this thing going, everybody. Hi. We're excited about what you're going to show us. Oh,
Thank
looks like
you.
I've got everybody. Thank y'all for getting back.
Moving it along.
This is everybody. Okay. Pardon me. I'd like to welcome everybody back after a break. That brings us to our consent agenda. Thank you, Derek. It's been moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. It's been moved by Derek and seconded by John to approve the consent agenda as presented. Please vote.
Sure, before we vote,
Oh,
I'm sorry. Well, I
please.
just wanted to say, I know it's consent agenda. I should have moved number 7. So there could have been some discussion about it. It's my fault.
Would you like it moved off?
Nope, I know I expressed some of my concerns about that particular situation because it was
Yes.
tied to a hire. I just want to say that the information that I collected doesn't support that in my mind. And so my vote's going to reflect that item, not necessarily all the other items.
Okay,
along that,
so I got you. So your item, would you like to take
Nope,
the agenda?
not necessary.
Okay, thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. Derek and John, please vote, Derek.
Yes.
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 No.
Mike, are you here?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for that note, Brent. That brings us to our regular agenda. Freeman Technology Service Center, Dr. Cantwell.
And Dr. Cantwell has guests
I
from
do.
Freeman to talk about our telemedicine option.
And I want to introduce our new nurse coordinator too. She hasn't been here before and she will be working with our Freeman guest as well. This is Darla Hightower and I just wanted to
Welcome.
bring her up to meet you. And then I will let Miss Renee Denton introduce the team that she brought with her. We are very excited about what she's going to present us. So take it away.
Okay, thank you so much. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Renee Denton. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Freeman Neosho Hospital. And my team that's here with me this evening is Ms. Rhonda Warren, who is our school telemedicine coordinator, our information technology specialist, Mr. Chris Miller over there, and Wes Raymond actually is our VP of Managed Care, and he is here just in support tonight. So appreciate your time this evening, and we're very excited to be able to come and share with you Freeman School Telemedicine Program, and we hope that you'll find that it's something that you feel might benefit the school district. So I asked Rhonda to pass out some papers during the break, and basically those papers just kind of give you an overview of some benefits and how we can support parents of children of your school district as well as your school faculty staff. So what I want to start off with is to just let you know that the main goal of providing school telemedicine is to reduce the number of school days missed due to illness. If we keep our kids healthy and we have convenient access for them to receive medical care, the goal is to try to reduce that number of days that they're gone due to illness. The whole program is designed to support your school nursing staff, not to replace them, but we work collaboratively with them to deliver health care to your children here in the school district, as well as school faculty and staff. It's not to replace your primary care provider by any means. This program is designed if I am at school today and I become ill, or I actually arrive to school ill if I'm a faculty member and very dedicated, as we all know that they are. And I just need to see someone to be able to either continue into my school day, or I need to maybe get medical clearance to be able to remain at school. All of these are geared towards care that can be delivered right here at school. And so what we want to share with you tonight is not only the program and the benefits of the program, but we want to eventually, here in just a little bit, we're going to do a demonstration for you to show you how we utilize the tools to be able to provide the service that we're discussing. So convenient access to care from your school nurse's site is something that can be extremely beneficial to not only a working parent, perhaps a parent who has difficulty with transportation. And so being able to get a child to the medical provider that they need to see, sometimes transportation is a huge barrier to that. So to be able to offer that care at school, allows us to early identify illnesses, to recommend treatment, and to be able to take care of that child right when they're in your school district. The parents who have difficulty leaving work, I'm going to share with you some success stories this evening, but that is one that we're really seeing as a huge benefit, to be able to offer to our parents who not only work jobs that are a good distance from the school, but there are many parents in our communities that not only can they not afford economically to miss a day's work, there are some who have a threat of losing their job if they miss their day's work. So to be able to meet that need is something that we're very proud to be able to do. So one of the things that we wanted to share with you is the ability to connect with a parent. Our program is unique in that we can not only offer this service to your students and to your faculty members. If you have a parent who is at work in perhaps even another town, and let's say they want to utilize this program, we have the ability to send a link to that parent using whatever smart device they prefer to use. They're able to click on that link and they're actually able to join in to that visit. So they are actually present during the visit, and we're going to be able to show you that here just very shortly with the demonstration. Not only can they join in on that visit, when our provider is looking into the ears and nose and throat of that student, the parent on their phone, which is the reason I brought my phone up here, is able to look. You're actually able to visualize into your child's ear, into their nose, their throat. It's truly just as if you are there. So we're very excited about the equipment, the technology capabilities. And Chris is showing you on the screen right now. I'm sorry, Rhonda is showing you on the screen right now some of the technology and the ability that we have to do a thorough evaluation of a student or of someone who is ill. Some other benefits that we have seen is this provides an alternative to a parent taking a child to urgent care or the emergency department. Okay, we're going to pause because my people are jumping ahead of me here, and that's okay. So if you are medical at all, we've done this many times, and Chris is always our guinea pig, thankfully. What you're visualizing right now is actually his eardrum. Do you see the shiny pearly white? That is actually his eardrum. So when our provider is providing care to the student, I, as the mama on the phone, can look at my phone. I am seeing what he is seeing on the screen. So rather than saying, oh, your child's ear looks really red, I'm looking at it. The provider can actually show me, using this technology, what they are seeing. So the whole goal, again, is early intervention and being able to treat those children and to keep them in school. We know that their opportunities for learning decreases every time that they miss school. And so our goal in trying to collaborate and work alongside your nursing staff, right now there are many of the nursing staff that when a child comes to school sick, and there's concern for anything that it might be potentially infectious, they have no other option but to send that child home until a physician sees them and says, it's okay, you're not infectious, you can return to school. This allows us to provide that medical clearance right from your school nurse's office. So we are not only talking with the student, the patient in front of us, we're talking with the provider who's providing that service, and we are talking to the parent. So everyone is present. Mom and dad don't have to leave work. They can join in this visit, and it truly is a time and cost savings opportunity for many. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pretend, I'm going to tell you what the actual process is and would be to utilize the program, and then we're going to show you an exam, and I would very much like to invite, I apologize, Ms. Hightower, would you mind coming up here? She absolutely had no idea that I was going to do this because I just met her this evening.
You should have the link on your phone.
But it's really important that I share with you the very limited amount of time that it involves the school nurse. Now, 3 success stories I want to share with you real quickly. Number one, we have had a very wonderful success story relayed back to us. And this is absolutely the goal of what we were trying to accomplish. We had a young mother who worked in a very large plant who did face exactly the concern of, if I call in sick today, I could potentially lose my job. But she had a child who was ill. She actually sent a note with the child to school saying, my child needs to do a telemedicine visit. This is the time that I can answer your call. Please call me during this time. We were able to do that. We were able to meet the needs of not only the child, but of that mother who could not leave work to receive care for their child. So it allows us to really meet the parent where they are at to help deliver care to the student. The nurses become very much involved, and I will share with you, I've been a registered nurse for 36 years. So I am very passionate about this because I understand completely the medical benefit of trying to take care of children as well as trying to work. And so as a nurse, I can tell you, nurses are extremely passionate and care a great deal about making sure that their children receive the medical care that they need. An example that I wanted to share with you is we had a patient who was in foster care, and this little kiddo bounced from home to home to home, okay? But the school nurse was the nucleus of all of that. The school nurse recognized that this child was receiving care, bouncing to another home, needed more care, bounced to another home, needed more care. The school nurse was the nucleus. The school nurse was able to talk to the foster parent who had the child at the time and say, look, this is what's going on with this child. We have an opportunity to do telemedicine visit right here from my office. Can we please do that? Can we get this child treated? We were able to not only treat that child, but we were able to make a referral to an ENT physician, and that child was able to have a tonsillectomy, which was what was needed. It kept causing all of the ear infections. So I greatly, greatly value the school nurses and the care that they provide to students every day. They are the eyes and ears of what's going on, as you all very well know. And we want to come along beside them and to help provide the resources where their resources end. So basically, this is what would happen if we were going to do this. So you'll get real training later if they decide to go with the program. So basically, what happens is your student goes to the school nurse just like they always would. The school nurse evaluates just like they always would. And when they come to the point of recognizing there's something needed more than what I can provide here, then the school nurse faces 2 avenues. They either call the parent and say, I've got Joey here in my office. He's sick. I need for you to come and get him and take him to be seen. Or we have a telemedicine program available right here in my office. Would you like for me to help facilitate a telemedicine visit? If they make that offer, and the parent says, yes, I would like for you to do that, your next step is to pick up the phone, call us, and give us the parent's phone number. And you're done, okay? And you're going back and you're taking care of like 50 other children that are in your office, okay?
Yeah.
So what's happening on the back end is our Freeman representatives are reaching out to that parent. We're getting consent for treatment. We are getting that child's medical history. And we are asking that parent, would you like to participate in this telemedicine visit? If the parent tells us yes, then we send them a link, which has been sent to me on my phone. They click on the link, and once they click on the link, they are actually going to be joined into the telemedicine visit. Once you come out, you can actually see. Okay. They're going to actually be joined into the telemedicine visit, where they are now entering the room with their child, with the Freeman provider, and with the school nurse who is darting in and out of the picture, taking care of the other children, okay? So once I join this, then I'm going to be able, I have to tell them who I am. Yes, I will, thank you.
So this is the provider view.
Okay. I apologize for one being slow because I couldn't see. So from my phone, I now have the view in this room and I can see everything that's going on, okay?
See her on the screen.
And my child is sitting right in front of the device, okay? Ms. Hightower knows that the telemedicine visit is ready to begin because this will ring just like a telephone. So she, again, the only thing she's done thus far is she has called and given us the parent's phone number. We've called, we've taken care of everything behind the scene. And the next thing that she knows, this cart is ringing. She knows that it's now time to sit the child down in front of the device, okay? Our child is sitting here. She has answered the call. She is now looking at our provider, which Chris is pretending to be the provider up in the top right screen, okay? And I now have the parent, the provider, and the child here, all right? We've already gotten information. We know what's going on with the child. They have already provided the vital signs to us. And so what is happening at this point is the provider is asking Ms. Hightower to assist them in looking in the child's ear. That is accomplished by literally pushing a button. So you push that button and you're now connected. And you're now using this and you're assisting in looking in the child's ear. The provider and the parent can see it, okay? So we now have looked at both ears, and now the provider says, I'd like to listen to their lungs. Ms. Hightower pushes the other button. Yeah. And she now grabs the stethoscope. She assists the provider by holding the stethoscope up to the chest so that the provider can hear what is taking place. And now, as far as we are concerned, your job is done. However, what we're finding is that the nurses are very, very happy with the scenario because you now know exactly what's going on with this child. We now have diagnosed this child with an ear infection. You have heard us tell the parent, we're going to send an antibiotic to this pharmacy, whichever pharmacy they choose. We send the antibiotic into that pharmacy. The parent leaves, goes and picks up the antibiotic. Ms. Hightower tells them, according to your school guidelines, whether or not the child needs to go home for the day based on your temperature. But we now have the antibiotic already taken care of, and she knows that that child's going to be back in the classroom tomorrow. Whereas the other alternative is the school nursing staff send this child home who is sick, and they have no idea if that child was ever taken care of, if they ever received the treatment that they needed, until 2 or 3 or 4 or a week later, the child shows back up in the classroom. So I apologize for putting you on the spot, but I very much wanted you to see how very easy it is to operate it. So absolutely. So if you can operate a smartphone, if you can push a button, you can operate this device, okay? So that is how it would be utilized for students, okay? Your staff and faculty also have the same ability to utilize this if they choose to. So again, some of the benefits that I've listed for you, I apologize, I don't want to waste your time by reading the benefits. I'm going to leave that for you. But I will tell you that we have seen some amazing benefits to staff and faculty. In fact, we've had some principals tell us they now have staff who are actually, because of the convenience having it located there in the school site, they now are getting the care that they otherwise would have gone without and just walked around feeling rotten for a week. They are able to stay at school, receive the treatment that they need, and not have to be gone the half day that they have to take off for a doctor's appointment. So it saves you costs, it saves you money in substitute teachers and having to have them in the classroom because they are able to have the medical care that they need available right from each school site. So the proposal that we have given you this evening is to place 16 devices in 16 of your school site locations All 16 of those devices will roll out incrementally, but our commitment is that we would have those 16 devices in place by the end of next calendar year. We have found through rolling these out in other school districts, the very best adoption opportunity is for us to roll it out to a school. Rhonda literally goes into each of these schools. She develops a relationship with the nurses. Chris literally goes into the schools. We teach them to use the devices. We come along beside them. We answer any questions they have, and we make sure that they're comfortable with the utilization of it. What we are finding is, what typically is happening, is we'll have some faculty first. So, okay, yeah, I had this rash and I have got to get it taken care of, but hey, it's here, so I'll do it. As soon as we have one success story, it spreads like wildfire. And I'm very pleased to say that our fire is lit and we are having lots of successes coming back to us. And it truly is very rewarding. You have here in front of you people who are very passionate about this, who've invested a great deal of time in the success of this, because we see the benefit that it provides to our school districts, and we're very, very glad to do it. And there is so much more. I could probably spend at least another hour up here talking to you about various different things, but I tried to just give you an overview so that you would have an opportunity to see how it works. And I'll hang up now for my telemedicine visit, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Gosh, does anybody have any questions for this amazing technology?
I might just add, I'm a success story. I work for a local school district. You guys presented south of here at the beginning of the school year. I was suffering from allergies, which I typically do at the beginning of school. I was a week out before I could see my provider, and I was miserable, and I didn't know what to do. And someone in my office said, "Oh, we'll do the telemedicine thing," which I had forgotten about. Did it, got me in like within a couple of hours. My medicine, I mean, I didn't miss any school. And yeah, so it's pretty awesome.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Appreciate you sharing that,
Absolutely.
because that's the types of things that we want to hear. That's what we're hoping to accomplish. Not only convenience, but just making certain that we are able to address those medical needs, providing care where you're at. I want to share 2 other success stories with you real quick, and then I'll quit. Just an example of cost and time savings. We had a situation where we had a little person, they had injured their arm over the weekend. They still came to school Monday morning. It wasn't an obvious fracture or anything like that, but it was hurting. The school nurse recognized it was hurting. So we were able to do a telemedicine visit. We were able to order an x-ray for that child, which, by the way, if there's any additional labs, x-rays that have to be ordered, we will take care of that, and an individual can take and have those done wherever they would like to have done. You don't have to have it done at a Freeman facility. But in this instance, the mama wanted to use Freeman, so we ordered the x-ray. Sure enough, there was a little bit of a fracture that involved the elbow, and that child needed an orthopedic referral. So our nurse practitioner who was manning the program that day had a referral to the orthopedic doctor. We had that child in the next morning to see that orthopedist, got them taken care of. We saved that family, not we, I don't mean it like that, but that family was saved an urgent care or an emergency department visit. The fees certainly are far exceed what a telemedicine visit would cost. And we were able to get prompt care for that child and get them back in school without having to miss. So we're very, very excited about that. Other things that are going on, one of the reasons that I purposely listed the other school districts that we're in is because we do have scenarios where we have teachers who live in one district who have children who go to another district. So as a teacher, and in fact, this has already happened on more than one occasion, we'll have a teacher in one district, the child in another district, and because we offer it in both districts, we're able to take care of that child just as if they were in the Joplin school district. So it gives an opportunity.
Yes.
I want to make a motion to approve the telemedicine.
Thank you, Mike. I actually accepted Brent's, his little, his endorsement as a motion, but,
Okay, I'll second that motion.
We're not trying to interrupt you, but you're
No problem.
overselling your product.
Okay, no problem. I am very, very passionate about it. We are all very
I
passionate about
think
it.
we all are. I kind of feel like I'm Bones or something from Star Trek, and I can diagnose all these things over wireless communications. So in any event, thank you, Dr. Joseph and Brent, for that motion and the second. I will let you continue your stories. I just think it's totally unnecessary. We really think this is nifty, and I, for one, am surprised we haven't heard of it sooner. So does anybody have any additional comments? Yes. Oh, Dr. Cantrell.
Last year in the spring, I had an email from a place in Springfield wanting us to do something like this, not quite as sophisticated as this, but like backpacks. And I talked to Dr. Moss, and she said, we need to talk to locals to see if anyone else can provide anything like this. So during our annual wellness and health advisory board, Renee was a part of that meeting, and I put it out there. We have several different local, Access and Mercy in different places. And Renee said, hey, we're already doing this. The others said it's not something we want to do right now. So we did put it out there for others, and we've had several conversations since then. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, Dr. Cantwell. And thank you for being here this evening. Great stories, and your illustration, the use of the equipment is very helpful for all of us. If there is no further discussion, I would entertain your votes.
Yes.
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 Mike?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate your time. Have a great evening.
That brings us to our camera equipment purchases for Jet HD program. Dr. Moss.
Okay, Dr. Mwangi was on this list, but she's not back yet. Dr. Cepeda, you might go check on her? Okay, very good. But I'm going to muddle through her item. We need to buy some camera equipment for our Jet HD program. The equipment that we have is about 3 years old, and with all of our extra recording and our football games and our basketball games and our video board, we need some enhancements. So speaking of enhancement, there is a DESI enhancement grant available that will pay 75% of the cost of this purchase with 25% local district funds. Administration recommends the Board of Education accept the low bid, and you'll see your bid list on the second page of $46,110 from B&H for this equipment.
I make a motion that we approve the B&H bid, $46,110 for the equipment. Just make a report look better.
It might. Some of us are struggling with the way they're looking. That's just me. Dr. Moss, thank you for that information. Thank you, Derek, for the motion. Thank you, Dr. Joseph, for the second. It is very exciting to learn that we get a great discount through the matching contribution, 75%. That's amazing for our district. Is there any additional discussion on this motion?
I have a question. All the current equipment we have, what's the useful lifespan of that equipment? 3 years seems a little bit short for a camera.
I know that a lot of these enhancement grant programs through Career Technical come up every 3 years. We have our expert just around the corner, Mr. Douglas. Useful life on your camera equipment, because 3 years seems a short time.
That's about a 10-year one and still working. The ones that we're talking about, we bought 3 years ago, and these are new lenses just like this. And we'll put those on the ones we bought 3 years ago. So we'll use those at the football games. So we can eventually, once Facebook and YouTube get 4K, we'll have a camera ready for it. So in the next 10 years, we'll be able to be ready.
Okay, and the cameras that we no longer will use then for that purpose, do we repurpose them somewhere else in the district?
Sure, yeah, they're exactly like this. So if one of these dies within the next 10 years, I can replace it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John, for those questions. Does anybody else have any other questions? Please vote.
Yes.
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 Mike?
Yes.
Yes. That brings us to our budget adjustments. Ms. Toft?
Okay, when we presented the budget, the initial budget to you, we were purposely did not inflate it with the HERF money or ESSER money that we were expecting, knowing that would come in this year. So tonight, most of the adjustments that we have are related to that. Also, other adjustments are related to items that have already been recommended to the board since we passed the initial budget back in June. So we have to remember with the ESSER and HERF money, it's all one-time money. So we know that in a few years, we will experience some type of a funding cliff, and we want to position ourselves the best that we can for that time. We don't want to add a lot of recurring expenses that we can't sustain 5 years from now. So on our recommended budget adjustments, Eric, if you go to that third page there, we are showing by fund and function, just the line items that have a change. Some of those, the elementary, are purchase of the Eureka math books is the biggest chunk of that. Then we also see elementary, middle school, and high school. The Fund 2 is increasing with the teacher interns that we are hiring this year to help with learning loss. We also are seeing some title increases, the supplemental instruction on 1251. The enhancement grant that you just voted on, that is reflected in here as well, in the 1300 function codes. We also are showing the virtual counselor, the nurse coordinator. They're using ESSER funds, instruction and curriculum coordinators. Technology, cyber security software is in there. The bus driver changes, land purchases that happened around Jung and Stapleton schools. And then if we move on to the revenue side, it'll be, I don't know exact page number in there. Keep going through that. I did present and show you what the budget looks like by function code. So then on the estimated revenues, we are showing the increase. The biggest line item on there is the ESSER funding for ESSER Fund 2. And last year, I did recode salaries of $8.5 million for using ESSER 2 funds. So we're requesting that reimbursement this year that's coming in. We're also showing a, let me see, the taxes, because when we did the tax levy, we already had to have the budget in place. So that local tax money is showing the increase in our assessed valuation is being reflected up there in the 5111s. I also want to mention that because of the ESSER funds that we're bringing in, the ESSER 2 funds, I'm proposing that we would place $4 million of Proposition C funds into the general fund this year. Normally, those are placed into Fund 2, but with the ESSER 2 of $8.5 million into Fund 2, that's going to be more than enough that we need in that fund. We're also placing the maximum amount of the Classroom Trust Fund over into Fund 4, which is about $2.5 million. And we're also proposing doing the maximum capital outlay transfer, which will be a little over $4 million, we're estimating. That will position us for necessary capital improvements for future years and also maximize our flexibility in those funds down the road. So I also want to mention the auditors have pretty much finished up their audit. They're planning on presenting in November this year instead of December. So, and it went very well so far. So I just wanted to bring that up. Does anybody have any questions on the budget?
I make a motion to approve the budget adjustments as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Riley. Thank you, Derek. Are there any questions? There's a lot of numbers on here, folks.
Yeah, it's a tremendous amount of numbers, and I keep trying to add it all up in my head. But if I think I've followed you correctly, we're increasing spending 4.1 million. The revenues increased 10 million with the ESSER funds. So the net is we're plus 6 million.
Correct.
if I followed all the
Yes.
spreadsheets.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out, John. It is a lot of money. You know, we're a big district and we spend a lot of money, quite frankly, and we're responsible for a lot of money. And it's good to know that we're being audited and that we're getting reports on the health of our district and that we seem to be in a good place. Is there any additional discussion concerning this motion? I believe you have the motion second. Thank you, Pat. Please, thank you, Ms. Toft, for your report. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Mike? Mike, are you there? Did I hang up on you?
Well, it looks like he's there.
Hello. I'm going to vote yes, and we're going to continue to move.
Yes.
Thanks, Mike. Sorry about that.
Yes. Thanks.
That takes us to our accounts payable. We'll stay with Ms. Toft.
Yes. Tonight, we're bringing the bill list to you in the amount of $7,269,512. That is compared to a year ago. That is very comparable, within like $250,000, the same amount. This month, we're not seeing a actual, what our large monthly payroll is not in there. Just with the timing, we are seeing a few of those benefits being paid out of this month, but we're not seeing the actual large payroll. And we do have around $2 million of construction costs that are in there. So
I make a motion that we pay our bills as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Riley. It's been moved and seconded that we approve payment of our accounts payable. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Mike?
Yes.
Yes. That moves us to our interactive flat panel for McKinley. Dr. Cantwell.
And I believe Eric is going to assist with this as well, since he is the IT person. So McKinley, with their Title I funds, after doing a needs assessment and visiting with Eric, are proposing that we purchase interactive flat panels, which, Eric, you can talk about the devices. I can kind of talk about some of the things they do, but you can tell them what it is, and then, if you will.
How many of them are there?
Do you know how many there are?
Oh, no. We count them.
One for every classroom.
Not on the document.
Let me go back to mine.
64, or is that?
It will, they can connect to 64 Chromebooks. And so, I mean, Eric, you can talk about it more, but as far as like intruder alerts, intruder on campus, or fire drills, earthquake drills, instead of getting on the intercom and making the announcement, it can just automatically go through the panels in the classroom. The students with their device, and it's to supplement the direct instruction of the teacher, could say, Shelley, you answered question number 3, Carrie, you answered question number 10, and in the moment get feedback from those students rather than, one kid raising their hand. And so this way, it's interactive with the kids. Made myself some notes here. Can connect up to 64 Chromebooks. The student responses to questions provides in the moment formative assessment to the teacher instead of waiting until papers are submitted and graded. And okay, now we see that half the class didn't get this. Through the device, they can see right in the moment if kids are getting it and correct any misunderstandings or reteach, teach a different way. Eric, you want to add anything? The teacher can manage devices from anywhere in the room. So if the teacher is walking around, can manage any of the devices. If the kid is on a game or whatever, the teacher has the ability to shut that device down.
It sounds like it's.
The interactive, we attach it on like 10-point touch on something. So instead of our current projectors, one student can go up there and use the pen and see it's there, doing something on board. I don't know if you have that.
but it also, it's stored within, they call it covered, that's like cloud. And so any teaching materials that the teacher creates, they can sign into that panel and it'll be available also. And they, protectors cost around $1,600, and then the bulbs around $300, and you can use it with this bulb about a year and a half.
That's old technology too, right? It's old technology, so it's also really expensive.
So, interactive flat panel costs about $2,100. Last,
So it looks like you get 16 of them for about $37,000. So 4K technology that's interactive. If I read that right, sounds like a great tool.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell, for sharing with us the ISD negotiation. Interactive flat panels.
Second.
Thank you, Riley. Thank you, John. It's been moved and seconded. We approved this purchase for flat panels that makes sense now for $36,996. That is a single source vendor. Is there any additional discussion? Please vote.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Dr. Campbell. Thank you, Dr. Campbell. That brings us to our policy updates for reading bonds.
Well, a good synopsis of our four policies by Mr. Meeting earlier this meeting. So you have time to review those. Administration would recommend approval of the first reading of the policies as presented.
Motion to approve. I'll give that one to Mike. And we'll second move and second. It's been moved and seconded. These policies, first reading. Is there any discussion on that? Please vote. Yes.
Yes.
That brings us to our plus deltas.
Well, I think we have many things to be happy and proud of tonight. Of the care of our students and our telemedicine, our telemedicine treatment, that there knows funding knows equipment coming. There's also good news about our budget and essentially the bonds that we can confidently go forward to facility planning and water and doing future and elementary expansion and all them for those who are not requiring tax rating and just the general.
It's always nice to say dollars. That's really exciting. I would also like to briefly comment or some information from information. And I want to assure our community that we're checking in on that. We don't just hear those anymore. It's my problem. So we'll be looking into that and hopefully resolve any concerns that exist out there. Our kids' safety is utmost important. Everyone on the board, everyone in our administration, and assure you that.
Yeah, thank you. That's a huge delta, but at the same time, I believe it's a plus, and I think because we have an administrative team having those items in that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I believe so. It is. I want everybody to have confidence that we're hearing people and that you don't ignore those pleas for help. So, is there anything else before the board? I encourage anybody.
I would say Kelsey Morgan's being completed, and I think that one was completed on budget, which I think that's great. And look forward to recognizing on that. And then recognizing our teachers, really works along with how generous gift and this. I know personally, one of my daughters had her, again, one wonderful teacher, and it's great to see our teachers being recognized for the efforts they do forward. I think they're fabulous.
One last bit of recognition from Joplin volleyball team. Yeah, very big last night. That's definitely sure.
It was good news. It's great. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Riley. It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. Please vote.
Yes.
Yes. Thanks, everybody.